primarily, we're doing work with the players around mental toughness, and we've made significant progress as a club over this past 12 months with a really high quality player pathway program. We've got what we call our REDS program, which is 14 to 18 year olds, a very structured program around player and people development. We're really keen on having good players as well as good people. We are a community club. The board of directors largely are fans, like myself, who've had a great deal of involvement with the club and have a great deal of passion for the club, and we want to see it compete. So actually, our way of doing things may be slightly different, but actually what we're looking to have a reputation for is being a club that does things well and does things the right way. And part of that is the way you treat people. Like I say, we want, we're doing this work around mental toughness. However, this work isn't necessarily going to be a shock to anybody, because it's how our club is anyway. And it's really important to be true to the region, the city that we're representing.
I like the sense that you're creating an idea that you can stand up on your own. You don't necessarily have to go to anybody cap in hand for support. Don't think of what your country can do for you. Think what you can do for your country. Society doesn't exist without the people in it and the organisations in it.
In all sports of where pathway programs just, they'll take one out of 100 and cast everybody off the side. We're looking to set up jobs for people who don't quite make full-time status, put college courses in place, university degrees in place for them. And we're not on our own in doing this at all, but it's all of these elements that actually go to doing things the right way. And I think that again, it's very easy to say that, but if you're going to say it, you've got to be true to it with your actions as well.
Absolutely.
I suppose the really big kind of piece that I took away, definitely early part of my career, was the importance of keeping it human, keeping it kind, really caring about people.
What do you do to allow or support people to be the best they can be?
I think it's giving them a voice. I think the more that we ask questions and the more that we encourage them to feel comfortable asking questions and to challenge and to really be innovative. What was interesting when she then kind of made a very interesting comment to me, and that was people never forget how you make them feel. Yeah. People do not care what you know until they know how much you care. I said, you never guess where I started my career. My career started washing dishes in a big hotel. Quite honestly, if you give people what they need, you can pretty much write your own check.
I just love this focus on care, attention, paying attention to other people. I can imagine leadership being about helping people with challenges. And for a lot of people, facing a challenge introduces a sense of fear. Because it's unknown. But I would say helping somebody to stretch themselves is a key aspect of leadership.
You can't be just as hard as nails. That's been really, really interesting for me, is that people want to be macho and hard and tough, and they're seen as nothing can get them down. I think that's actually a bit worrying. I mean, we need to remember that we are still flesh and blood. Getting some indication that a leader is perhaps like that is perhaps even overly resilient, is too tough, and perhaps we can help them to understand that there are other ways of approaching the way that they deal with themselves. Tools like MTQ for me just give us an indication of who those individuals are, so we can actually help them to understand some of the symptoms around resilience and mental toughness, and how we're basically working working with our team and actually helping our leaders understand some of the challenges for their teams as well. Rightly or wrongly, a lot of senior leaders believe that they need to be, perfect in what they do, and they need to be absolutely expert in what they're trying to do. And I think they miss a huge opportunity with actually involving more people. I think that in that period, understanding the value that you're adding as an employee to the organisation it really helps you. Don't be sort of going on about, I need pay rise, need pay rise, need pay rise. What value are you offering? How are you helping your organisation be successful? If you can sort of show that, and you can do what people need. Back to my waiter analogy, which is a key bit of learning for me in my career, is about adding value, right? Let people do what they want to do. And the only question you have to ask yourself is, can it be reversed? Because if a decision can't be reversed, then you probably need to have a consultation. You probably need to spend more time on it. But actually, 99, but this is Jeff Bezos, not me. This is Jeff Bezos saying this, but he's read the article. But he's saying if 99% of decisions actually are relatively easy to reverse.
If you give everyone their opportunity and people screw up, people come for the leader at the end of it. So I sort of feel that the level of assurance and confidence in yourself and your team there must have to be pretty high. To me, that's mentally tough behaviours.
Having the confidence, and it's going to be painful because they're going to make mistakes. But also, I think the interesting thing for me is, when people do make a mistake, absolutely the last thing in the world I do is go and rip them out, and scream at them. As a leader, I think my success is about how fast my team are willing to come to me and say, we've messed up, because at that point I could fix it. In 1980, 1970, the style of leadership was very much, command and control. And I think that by the time we get to 2020, 2040, it's going to be the absolute opposite of that.
And I designed and rolled out a coaching program for our women partners, our women senior leaders across Australia, so that we could support them to have, as you said, long-term sustainable careers as partners of the firm. I've been coaching women partners within Deloitte since then and coach a significant number of exceptional women each year. When I'm talking of cognitive boundaries, it's what are we limiting ourselves to in terms of our view of ourselves and the world outside of us, which is something really important in terms of mental toughness.
Where the big challenges are in women's development these days?
Well, I think the challenges sometimes can be exactly what you're referencing as opportunity. And so it does come back to understanding, well, organisationally, socially, politically, what are the systems that we're working in that are having an influence on the opportunity or the availability of different challenges that can suit their skills. But I think there are also societal challenges. Got an interest also in assisting with talking about managing menopause in the workplace, and this is something that people haven't spoken to really of much, except for perhaps the last few years it's becoming more topical. And so it's looking for the role models, it's looking for the stories that we can share, the success stories, even the challenging stories. What are some of the challenges that people have had that they could share, and how did they resolve those, so others who might face similar challenges can work through them. So again, this is where mental toughness comes into how do we help people lean in towards challenges rather than pull themselves away. Or head of army, David Morrison, used to say it's what the standard you walk past is the standard you set.
What is kindness coaching?
Kindness coaching is some work that I do with a social enterprise, and we focus on kindness in leadership. It's allowing for more equity in the workplace. So if you bring kindness into your leadership, you'll be able to open your mind to setting kind business objectives, which allows for more diversity and inclusion. It allows people to bring their best self because you're open to supporting people to be at their best. I get a lot of energy from actually helping and supporting people through coaching. It's something I thrive on and really do enjoy. And I think as you get older, you do tend to lean into accepting more of yourself. We've got this historical view of what people should be and what they should do and what they should say and how we should interpret their behaviours and their emotions and really label them and carry assumptions about them, which causes some disturbance, I think, of people's ability to walk past that sometimes and say, well, I can feel completely at ease and not suffer from fear of people's opinions, from FOPO, as we call it. Hold on a sec. I have had all of these situations where I've performed really well and I've achieved this and I've led great teams and I've contributed positively. So why am I doubting myself in this situation? What can I bring from my learnings of the past that's going to support me in the current state and the future? Yes, it's not about fixing women, it's about fixing the system that we're in.
Exactly.
And so it's about contemporary views of how women have roles in society, and what those varied roles may be. Well, how parents have roles in society, roles in society, not just women. And there's small things we can do, but that's where leadership comes to play. If leaders don't role model it, why would anybody else? It's really hard if you look around and your leaders aren't actually role modeling what is appropriate in terms of creating the conditions which allow for psychological safety and inclusion and diversity and mindfulness and attention to what's happening around them.
I discovered that I enjoy a lot serving others, and not everybody can serve from the heart. Many people can serve, but very few people can be generous in serving. Elements can contribute into the process of serving in a generous way, such as your mindset, such as your emotional state, such as some traits of your personality that can position you as better in terms of delivering a service than others. Bringing psychology into the service industry is very important and much needed. People who do not have the right mindset to serve can never serve from the heart and can never achieve excellence. They deliver great customer service. Yeah. However, when we talk about customer experience, you need to upgrade the game. Customer service is the functionality of the service. But when you talk about customer experience, you talk about how the customer feel after availing for this service, or after experiencing your brand, or experiencing the service, or, the product that they are purchasing. Connecting on an emotional level with people is the most difficult part. And to be able to do that, you need the people with the right mindset that is going to deliver your service.
Do you think challenge is one of the big issues in customer service?
Challenging yourself to do things different.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone can do the ABC of customer service. Everyone can smile. Everyone can, say thank you, the basics. But very few people can be bold enough to do things differently. What are you doing differently? Where are you standing out? What is so special about your service? And companies are making it more difficult on themselves. You know why? Because they are promising the moon for the customer in their marketing campaign. They're setting very high expectations to the customers. So the customer comes with very high expectations, and then they have a different experience. There is a big gap between what we promised and what we delivered. And who's there to bridge the gap? This particular staff member who is willing to do things differently that are not written in a training book.
And eventually they changed the processes. And they said, right, everybody can authorize, in the UK terms, up to £5 worth of putting things right.
Yeah.
Don't have to go to a manager. It transformed the cinema chain. Suddenly people started to go into their chain in preference to their competition because the experience was quite different. So really, really interesting.
And because they empowered their employees.
Yeah, and they allowed the employees to take risks.
So can I ask then, Maya, where would companies kind of be at with this kind of training the mindset of someone?
It gets very challenging in the corporate world when it comes to companies investing in training, because companies who do not understand the importance of employee experience, EX, will never achieve CX, which is customer experience.
When I try to tell people, hey, you need to do hard things, they go, well, wait a minute, Ron, I already have a hard life. I don't want to do more hard things. I want less hard things. And I go, you're missing the point here. Really doing hard things makes your life easier. It was this light bulb moment for me that I had spent a good 20 years of my life always trying to avoid hard things. I was a world champion at taking the path of least resistance. I didn't realize how much that was detrimental to my well-being. And the 4Cs model really just it works for me. There's a lot of good stuff there that I like. At the heart of what you said, Doug, is I think a lot of people need a little help with facing those fears. And also, I think they don't give themselves enough credit for how powerful they are. You don't know what you're capable of yet. All right. I would say 98% of the population really hasn't gone out there and pushed those limits to see what they're capable of. And that was me until I was 45 years old. Once you do something, you go, wow, I can't believe I just did that.
Yeah.
And then you think, what else can I do? And then it just builds on itself. And then one day you look back 5 years and you go, I'm doing things that I never would have imagined I could do. Self-belief needs to be built. And closely related to that is confidence. Confidence is so powerful. Once you start to get confidence in what you can do, what you're capable of, the sky's the limit. I only live one life, right? We all are only going to go through this life one time. And to me, it seems absolutely crazy not to try to make it the best life you can until they unplug the jukebox, right? When the time's up and you can no longer play the jukebox, I want to make sure that I've done the best I can with that time. So that to me is really a driving force to be uncommon, because here's the deal. That's being common's boring to me. All right. I don't want to be average. The worst thing you could call me is mediocre. If you call me that, that's like an insult. That's me though. And so where I've had to change my thinking is maybe it's going back to the idea of the mentally sensitive, right? If they don't want to be more mentally tough, that's their path.
Exactly.
No judgment if that's your kind of your station in life, or that's what you want to do. But again, I would still try to maybe convince you otherwise. That would just be, that's just the way I am, because I still believe that the common life, the mediocre life, is just not a fulfilling life. That's what drives me. I have my standard of excellence. It's not incredibly high, I'll tell you, but it's high enough that I feel good about myself when I'm hitting it. And so I think that that's a good lesson for everybody is, number one, understand what your standard of excellence is, and then just keep shooting for it. Also knowing not every day are you going to get there. As human beings, we're built for transient, moderate stress. We actually respond well to transient, moderate stress. Now I say, okay, what's moderate stress? A lot of the research I've read really doesn't do a good job of describing what is moderate stress. What's moderate for me may not be moderate for somebody else, right? And so I think that's where mental toughness comes in.
There's lots of information out there, but how do we turn that information into intelligence? And there's a process to get there. Our relationship with failure, we know that failure is the pathway to growth, and that without failure we can't grow. And yet we really objectify success and we minimize failure, and yet failure is the pathway. Failure is the opportunities. How can we be comfortable in our own skin? How can we be okay when things aren't okay? And the word that comes to mind, and the idea that I've explored, is detachment. But the detachment from the judgments of others, detachment from the moments where you might not succeed, failure. And it's the space between I'm attached to what you think of me, or I'm attached to getting that certain outcome, and I'm attached, which actually lowers your resilience.
When we talk about the opposite of mental toughness being mental sensitivity, so essentially people who are low in mental toughness tend to be more sensitive to those kind of external factors in terms of successes and failures and things like that. The reality is someone might judge you because you can't control what other people think.
Exactly. And they will judge it.
And that's okay. Fine.
They will judge it good. They will judge it bad. They will be indifferent. What freedom it brings not to worry. I like to explore the personal resume, because that tells me more about the how than the what. It also allows me to explore the why, which is their personal vision for their life. There are certain businesses out there that lead with the product, and there are certain businesses out there that lead with the people. We need self-mastery, mental toughness, stress tolerance, resilience. This is the core of human need. It doesn't matter about the company or the school that you go to. We need to be singing this and talking about it.
Yeah. So there's a team of us dressed up in suits. It's probably the first suit I ever had. Got dressed up and stood in the front of the factory floor. And there was about 75 odd workers there. And they were told by the GM at the time, within about 10 minutes, that they were closing down the plant. It had been there for 30 odd years. And that they were relocating to Vietnam. And as of right now, that everyone, unfortunately, has lost their job. And I didn't know it was mental toughness at the time. I think I was looking at the different kinds of behaviors. Some people were catatonic, frozen from the shock. Some people were in tears. Some people were picking up chairs and throwing them around, the factory floor in anger.
Those who you kind of alluded to there that went on and got better jobs, and that kind of what seems like a negative experience turned into a positive one. What do you think it is about their mindset that leads them down that route?
One was around the day-to-day grind of finding work, right? That sense of commitment, right? And being diligent and setting up tasks and kind of working towards a goal. And definitely those individuals who did that better, who are prepared, who came to the discussions with us, having done their homework and kind of moving through the stages, definitely I found that they were moving into jobs and opportunities much more efficiently. I think, and so that was also linked to that sense of, taking control of your life, right? And not being a passenger, right? There's a difference between safety and discomfort, right? You can feel uncomfortable and you're still safe, right? So therefore this fight flight response or whatever we might have, that tends to kick in. So can do being, are you demonstrating the right knowledge, skills and abilities to get the job? But this will do and will fit, right? This motivation, drive, commitment, to do things. And then this cultural values piece, right? The will fit. People are hired for can do and they're fired for will do and will fit.
And it touches upon what you spoke about, this attitude that you bring to a job. It's not the skills or the knowledge or the qualifications. It's that attitudinal stuff, which resonates with mental toughness, of course. Employers never assess for attitude, do they?
Huge opportunity. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone's so caught up in that short-term cycle. You're not really thinking about that long-term vision and therefore giving people the roadmap and the story and the transformation, that they're going to undertake.
People recognizing those stages of what's happening, how does it make me feel? But that kind of, what do I stand for? How do I kind of want to see myself? What do I stand for? What do I value?
I'm going to do this webinar coming up to this group of, young entrepreneurs who are running very successful businesses, but they all want to become billionaires. They want to get to this, what they're calling the billionaire mindset, right? What is actually your relationship with leadership? And how do you go from being quite successful to being, substantially, successful from a commercial, perspective? One of the common themes I thought was fascinating is their relationship with risk. Gaj, would you forego the opportunity to pay your mortgage on your house, your children's education, so that you could pursue your endeavor, right, to its absolute maximum? Like, what are you willing to give up, basically? Right? And I said, no, I wouldn't do that. And they sort of said, well, enjoy your view. The ability to be able to have that relationship with risk, the comfort with risk, right? And know that it is discomfort and not safety. Going back to that earlier point, right? And I think it's one of the big frustrations that I keep hearing, in the corporate world, is that we're not able to think bigger. We kind of have to think in this way. And that's partly because we're not allowed, we're told to take risk, but actually we're not. The behavior is not, validated, right? So how can you innovate? How can you do things differently in a way that really gets massive changes when everyone's competing? We're all competing, right? It's a really
great point, Gaj. You've built a reputation around Europe as being a deep thinker about coaching and about leadership development. I really am impressed with your approach to coaching because you are truly evidence-based.
My first ever workplace was a PR agency, and I've learned a lot there, both as a psychologist and as a freshman to the world of work. So my interest in the evidence-based practice comes from my education as well, that I've been learning lots of theory back in the university. They knew that they had the philosopher's stone, that they were right. And of course, people in the other departments, they had their ways of describing what is happening in the minds or behind the behaviors of our clients. And so I was seeking something that could really help me in understanding, and not just understanding, but intervening properly with my clients. I frequently see the concepts or the 4 C's or even the sub-factors coming up in our conversations. I see them as useful stepping stones in understanding the client, the problems or challenges of my client. Pure coaching science seems to be talking about resilience and mental toughness as a key driver of the coaching's effectiveness. As a strong component of ethical coaching and ethical practice, I think we need to draw lines around our competency boundaries. Coaches should be careful in how they are managing their competency boundaries. And if you, as a coach, have a wider understanding and a license and whatever, depending on your country and legislation, you have a background to deal with the whys, with the internal motives of people, then go for it, because that's where and that's how you make lasting change on a deeper level. The world of coaching it has tectonic plates like the surface of the earth.
An interesting question. You spoke earlier, and you mentioned it a couple of times, about your own personal journey. What would be the one, maybe there's more than one thing that you think you have learned over your career, perhaps from the moment you left university? What is the one big thing that you have learned?
Never stop learning. The moment when you see that you are not developing any further, when everything just goes by the plan and everything is perfect, on one hand you should be celebrating, and on the other hand it is a nice thing if you just start questioning whether you are really in the right place or have you mistaken something. As we have mentioned, I'm kind of a theory man. That's where my evidence-based approach and enthusiasm is coming from. One of my big learnings was to put a leash on my interpretations. Just give the pieces of the puzzle to my clients. I just offer them some concepts. How would your story relate to, for example, the 4 C's of mental toughness, if they have an understanding of that? Or how would they relate to whatever? And how would you make up the puzzle? And even if the interpretation is a complete failure, if it doesn't make sense from a psychological or whatever sense, if it helps them to change in the given direction, then I can be happy with that. It was an important point in my journey, how to get rid of my thoughts.
And he stood there and he said, how many people in this audience think that coaching is non-directive? And everybody put their hand up in the air. And he said, that's nonsense. The minute you ask even the most open question, you are directing.
Every mentor and every company has a different approach to mentoring. And this is a place where we could just circle back to your thought about boundaries around coaching and boundaries around mentoring.
I would like to think so, because in our definition, or our explanation, should I say, of learning orientation and the mental toughness concept, we talk about reflection on your experiences and the experiences of others around you. Learning is going to come from both, isn't it?
It is not just the mentally tough who could be successful, but those who have self-reflection on their own mental toughness.